Who are the best safeties in the NFL today? What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL rankings video. The final rankings video for the individual positions. In this video, the safety rankings, ranking the top 25 safeties in the NFL today. And I have to say this was by far the most difficult position to narrow down because of a couple things. There are a lot of talented safeties in the NFL. I could have easily done a list of 40, a top 40, easily. It was very difficult to eliminate players from this top 25. But there's also so many different kinds of safeties. There are matchup safeties who cover tight ends and slot receivers. Box safeties, who are primarily great in run defense. Free safeties, who are primarily deep and covering the deep plays. And of course, there are all-around safeties. So the only criteria that separates these players is the more that you can do and the more schemes you can play in, the better. That definitely helps your case. Here are my top 25 safeties in the NFL today. Before I give you that top 25, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe to the channel for more NFL rankings just like this. BLVers, heads up, it is fantasy season. We are in July now, which means that you should be getting warmed up and starting to study and prepare for your home leagues, your fantasy leagues against your buddies, trying to beat them, trying to get those bragging rights, and possibly get that cash. If you want to prepare, the best way to prepare, in my opinion, is the way that I prepare, which is on Underdog Fantasy by playing as many best ball drafts as possible. That includes Best Ball Mania 3, which they're just handing out millionaires like it's their day job, because it is. And then it's also the Puppy, which is only a $5 entry, which is also an incredible tournament to join. There are big money tournaments. If you're intrigued by that, Underdog Fantasy has it. If you just want to get started and just want to get your feet wet in fantasy to prepare for the season upcoming, it's also fantastic for that. The ADP is top notch. The competition, there is none better. So Underdog Fantasy, it's absolutely the place to be this summer for fantasy football. Check it out. Use the code BLV. Link is in the description. Also the pinned comment. BLV will double your first deposit on Underdog Fantasy up to $100. That is double your first deposit up to $100 using the code BLV on Underdog Fantasy. I'm telling you guys, it's my favorite place to play fantasy, and it will be yours as well. Now, let's rank some safeties. Kicking off my top 25 safeties in the NFL entering 2022, at 25, Amani Hooker of the Tennessee Titans. It just feels like every list that I create for the defensive side of the football, a Tennessee Titan appears. Amani Hooker is one of those underrated Tennessee Titans in the secondary. Amani Hooker is an incredibly talented and intelligent safety. He complements Kevin Byard very well. They move around Kevin Byard. They have him in the box. They have him deep. They have him matched up on somebody. Hooker is that nice little complement. He's a nice deep free safety, reads the quarterback very well, can jump passes extremely well, get in the way, get his hands on the football, had 4 picks, I believe, a year ago, and backed it up by ranking as a top 5 safety according to Pro Football Focus, at least in their grading system, a season ago, because of his incredible coverage ability. Covers a large portion of the field, has great range, and really is one of those silent safeties. He doesn't give up big plays. He's always in the right spot, and that is a safety that you need in the NFL today. You need a safety that makes everybody else better and covers up those gaps in coverage. And Hooker can do that extraordinarily well. Very underrated player. Don't sleep on this young Titan safety. My number 24 safety entering 2022 is Jaron Kearse of the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys found a really talented safety that's been bouncing around the NFL for quite some time. And this is a name, Kearse, that a lot of people have been excited about in many locations. The Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions, Finally, he sticks and finds a nice role with the Dallas Cowboys. In Dallas, he became a little bit of a specialist. He became a little bit of a matchup safety and a box safety. And not only was Kearse excelling for this defense in that role, he was phenomenal, the best at breaking up passes and forcing incompletions in the NFL last year. Kearse is an extraordinary athlete. He's about 6'4" and he can run pretty well. He is deceptively quick sideline to sideline, and his incredible range and length is what really separates him as one of these middle of the field defenders that's just really difficult to get the ball around or by. He just has that range where he can tip passes down, he can make plays on the ball at the last second. He's a very talented guy. I just felt like every Cowboys game that I turned on last year, he was making a big play. And in that system, he is going to have another incredible season in 2022. I think he is just on the rise now that he has found his fit in the NFL. My number 23 safety entering the 2022 NFL season is Jamal Adams of the Seattle Seahawks. For many Seahawks fans, they will be disappointed with this placement, but I also believe if they've been watching the team closely, they can agree with my stance on Jamal Adams. I've always been a Jamal Adams fan, but I feel like he has been poorly utilized in Seattle. One season, he has a bunch of sacks, and he is just a phenomenal pass rusher off the edge. They're finding creative ways to get him loose and in one-on-one situations where he can get to the quarterback. Why he's still a top 25 safety is because of his impact both as a run defender near the line of scrimmage, very good pursuit, very good at reading the play, very good at finding the gaps in the run lanes, attacking and making a play behind the line of scrimmage, which is very impressive for a safety. But not only that, he is one of the best, if not the most talented pass rushing safety in the NFL. If you get him on a matchup, a tight end, a back, he can find a way to get around that guy and make plays. So the NFL adjusted to the Seattle Seahawks approach a year ago, and they made him a priority in protection. And with Jamal Adams, I feel like this is a guy that's just been not utilized well enough in Seattle's system. He's been exposed in coverage far too often, and he's been really exposed for a player that can't stick one-on-one in man coverage with the best tight ends, the best slot receivers, and just not utilized to his best. I feel like when Adams is at his best, he's one of the biggest playmakers in the NFL at any position, but he significantly has just fallen off in terms of his consistency and his reliability in space in the NFL. And that's a concern that I've seen from safeties in the past. Somebody like Landon Collins, who's very similar to Adams early in his career, but once he lost that step or two as a in-box defender, he just wasn't as valuable. So I hope that Adams can find more value outside of just playing as that extra spare linebacker on the field. My number 22 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is Vonn Bell of the Cincinnati Bengals. Vonn Bell is the player that I named the most underrated Cincinnati Bengal, and I honestly feel like Vonn Bell has been underrated his entire career. He was good on New Orleans, and then he leaves New Orleans. A lot of people felt like he was overpaid, and all of a sudden, he has just become a very reliable, steady, consistent presence in the back end of Cincinnati's secondary. And the thing I love about Vonn Bell is he's not the best in the box, he's not the best deep downfield, but Vonn Bell has an extraordinary versatile skill set. He can play in any system, in any role. If you want him to play as a split safety, he has enough speed, range, and athleticism to do that. If you want him to be a player that can play in the box as a traditional strong safety, he certainly has the strength against the run where he can do that. He can cover tight ends. He can play man on man. And he is a very intelligent player when it comes to the run game. Vonn Bell can do just about everything, which is something that to me is very valuable in the modern NFL because you know he's never going to be a liability in any spot, in any game plan. Vonn Bell has been excellent since joining the Bengals, and I think deserves more flowers for his contributions to this defense. My number 21 safety entering 2022 is the Carolina Panthers, Jeremy Chinn. Jeremy Chinn is on this list because he's a freak show. But not only is he a physical freak show, but he is the most uniquely utilized safety in the NFL. He played more snaps on the line of scrimmage than any safety in the NFL, I do believe. But not only can he hold the edge at the point of attack, he can also be great down the field, in coverage, deep, cover a ton of ground. He has very deceptive speed for a player that looks like a linebacker. He is big, he is physical, but he also has great ball skills and phenomenal strength. Pound for pound, this man is an absolute beast, a monster that deserves his spot on this list. I think that Chinn is only getting better. I think he's continued to improve in coverage, and I believe he'll take another step forward in 2022. My number 20 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is Kyle Dugger of the New England Patriots. As a Patriots fan myself, Kyle Dugger was the expected breakout of New England, and he absolutely positively did not disappoint, absolutely improving in the secondary for New England, especially in terms of his ball skills, his interceptions, and his ability to make plays in the secondary, breaking on the football with really awesome acceleration and playmaking ability. This guy had, I believe, 4 interceptions last season, but Kyle Dugger just does so much for this defense. He is incredibly versatile. He can play man-on-man on tight ends. He can play in the box as a spare linebacker and take on guards and centers in the run game. He can flow sideline to sideline as a middle linebacker, so to speak. And he can also play split safety with somebody like Devin McCourty or Adrian Phillips at his side. He has athleticism. He has strength. He is, to me, a lot like Jeremy Chinn. Maybe not as recognized, but he is a better, more fluid coverage player. And that is why Kyle Dugger is at number 20. My number 19 safety in the NFL today is another New England Patriot back-to-back. We have Adrian Phillips of the New England Patriots. The Patriots have 3 of the top 25 safeties in the NFL. Adrian Phillips is absolutely no exception. This guy is phenomenal. He's always been really good. I feel like he's been underrated for most, if not a majority, if not still, in his career. And he continues to be underrated. Adrian Phillips is more of a traditional strong safety for the New England Patriots. He took over the Patrick Chung role for this defense, and he has been really good in it. He is very good at covering tight ends. He's very good at reading a quarterback in coverage. I thought he was phenomenal in certain games this year. The Chargers game, his revenge game, off the charts amazing. He had 4 picks as well, just like Kyle Dugger this season. And I felt he just got better in man-on-man coverage and played really well in zone as well, breaking on the football. But he's also got that presence, that physicality to come downhill and play in the run game. He is a lot like Patrick Chung, and there's no surprise that he's taken over with flying colors for the New England Patriots secondary in that absolutely vintage and important role in the Patriots defensive scheme. My number 18 safety in the NFL today is JEVON HOLLAND, the nice Canada boy who actually grew up not far away from me. JEVON HOLLAND of the Miami Dolphins. JEVON HOLLAND is an awesome athlete. The number one thing that comes to mind with JEVON HOLLAND is his incredible range as a free safety. He has that rare burst and that rare break on the football to be able to break up passes and just absolutely fly from left to right, from sideline to sideline. His absolute acceleration, his break on the football, his reading of the game, his awareness, his anticipation, they're all beyond and above his years and his knowledge and his experience in the NFL. But not only is he great and rangy in the back end, he also had the most pressures in the NFL amongst all safeties. according to Pro Football Focus. And some of that is scheme related with Brian Flores and the Dolphins, but I think that's also speed and acceleration related, because when he's on a blitz, he is so fast that he can break through the line with extraordinary speed, and he just is a flash in a blink of an eye to the quarterback. Jevon Holland has a ton of talent. He has a ton of potential. The only reason he is not higher is because he's so young. Not to mention, he is one of the best man coverage safeties in the NFL already. Holland is awesome. My number 17 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is Xavier McKinney of the New York Giants. This was essentially McKinney's rookie season, and boy, did he play awesome for the New York Giants. He was not surrounded by the most talent in the secondary or the pass rush for the Giants, but I felt like McKinney was just everything the Giants needed him to be. If he needed to be a matchup player that week on a tight end or a slot player, he could do that. He could achieve that. If they wanted him to be a box player, he could do that as well. I feel like he has great leadership skills. I feel like he's a great tackler in space. I feel like he really packs a punch and can make plays in the passing game. He had a ton of picks this year. I think he had 5, and he really broke out. He just has it all. His stats back it up, and his play backs it up. He can do just about everything that a safety needs to be able to do. Again, another safety with a ton of upside, a ton of ability, just young and a little bit unproven. My number 16 safety entering 2022 is Quandre Diggs of the Seattle Seahawks. It's funny because a lot of people thought that Jamal Adams would be the big safety that took over this secondary and really benefited from this system, but it's been Quandre Diggs who has been next level in Seattle. His consistency with creating big plays as a interception ball magnet. He has been an absolute ball hawk since joining the Seattle Seahawks. He had some successful seasons in Detroit, but he was also a tad inconsistent, especially in Patricia's days. I feel like once he went to Seattle, he just became that ball hawk once again, reading and reacting to the football, playing incredible deep free safety zone coverage. He is one of the best in the NFL at playing that inside cover 3 shell, that single high safety. He is really, really good at it. He's not great in terms of box and all that, but his consistency with his interception numbers, his playmaking ability, and his coverage in zone, I think deserves his spot on this list. My number 15 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is the reliable, consistent, and silent Adrian Amos. The thing about Adrian Amos is you probably won't notice him a ton while you're watching his defense perform, but it's for good reason, because he doesn't give up plays. Adrian Amos is as consistently sound as they come at the safety position. He's also got the speed, got the physicality to play in that Packers system, where a lot of times this is a guy that's matching up in match zone, where he's basically turning into a man defender and he's having to take on receivers in crossing route situations and having to run with those guys. He's having to come downhill and play the run just as well as he can move and flow in coverage. And that is a skill set that is extremely rare. Adrian Amos is very similar to somebody like Harrison Smith. I don't think he's quite gotten to the level of Smith in terms of IQ of the game, but physically, he is as good of a well-rounded physical safety as you will find. He's also just a very reliable football player. He's good every year. He's not great every year, but he's really good, and there's something to be said about that. My number 14 safety in the NFL entering 2022, speaking of Harrison Smith of the Minnesota Vikings. Harrison Smith is not quite the safety he used to be, but he's still awesome at football. And you know what Harrison Smith can do and what he can be and how he can be utilized. The peak Harrison Smith could play in any spot in the secondary. This guy is just so incredible at reading the game. His IQ at this position is off the charts. His ability and versatility to play both as a deep free safety and a box strong safety and a man coverage player is just rare. And that's why he's one of the best safeties of his generation, really. of the last 5 to 10 years, he has been arguably the best safety in the NFL from season to season. And he can do it all. He can rack up tackles as a run defender. He can rack up picks as a coverage player. And he commands the defense. His leadership is just unquantifiable. It's huge for Minnesota. They've had so many different pieces in the secondary, but Harrison Smith is the steady presence in the back end, and he is my number 15. My number 13 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is Jessie Bates of the Cincinnati Bengals. I absolutely love Jessie Bates for what he can do as a speedy, rangy free safety. But there are a couple things that hold him back from being a top 10 safety, in my opinion, based on last year. He was inconsistent last season, and he gave up too many plays last year. He turned it on in the playoffs. I felt like he was probably the best safety in the playoffs last year. From game to game, he was incredible. Really. Jessie Bates was amazing. He was a huge part. They made it to the Super Bowl. Without his performance against the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Titans, and even in the Super Bowl, this guy was off the charts in the playoffs. He just turned it up a notch. But we didn't see that notch turn up until the playoffs. He wasn't the same guy in the regular season. And consistency is huge, especially when the safety position is so stacked, so loaded, and so close that it's really razor thin. So when deciding to rank these guys, I've got to lean towards production and consistency. And Jessie Bates, this is really his second year of being a very good player. But even in his second year as being a good player, being a great player, he had inconsistencies, gave up too many touchdowns, gave up too many big plays. But positively, what I love about Bates is I think at his peak, he's not only a really rangy free safety who is probably the best at going from one sideline to the other and breaking up passes, but also as a man coverage player, he's extremely underrated in terms of his ability to break on the ball, in terms of his coverage and match ability. Because of his quickness and speed, he can match just about any tight end or even receiver in the NFL. He's really that good when his head's on straight and when he's playing his best. So Jessie Bates, it wouldn't shock me if he was a top 5 safety this year. He has all the talent in the world. It just comes down to consistency for me. The number 12 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is MICAH HYDE of the Buffalo Bills. Always been an absolutely huge MICAH HYDE fan. And I couldn't even get mad at him for picking off Mac Jones with one of the most incredible interceptions of last year. MICAH HYDE flies to the other side of the field and catches a for sure touchdown to Nelson Aguilar from Mac Jones in the wild card round, which really set the Bills off in their incredible surge in the playoffs and really should have been a deeper run. And I hope that MICAH HYDE sees that playoff success coming soon because he's been so good for so long and one of the best deep free safeties in the NFL. He complements his partner, Jordan Poyer, extremely well. Poyer's more of the box safety. HYDE is more of the free safety. And HYDE is so good and so consistent at covering up the back end of this defense. And even without Tre'Davious White, still playing at a high level. He's lost maybe a little bit in terms of his acceleration, his speed, his extra gear that he maybe used to have. This guy used to play slot corner, like he was that talented as a coverage player. And still a consistent run defender, a good open field tackler. Not a great downhill run player, but a very good, consistent tackler in open space. HYDE is just really smart, reads quarterbacks really well, and is just absolutely peak in this Sean McDermott defense. Really respect this player for what he can do and the leadership that he provides and the consistency he provides for this Buffalo defense. My number 11 safety in the NFL entering 2022, it's got to be Devin McCourty, man. Devin McCourty is perhaps the most underrated player of his generation. And maybe I'm biased, I'm a Patriots fan here, but this guy's ageless. He gets better. I mean, the guy is getting better. It's absolutely insane what he's doing. He was one of the top 3 or 4 safeties in the NFL about 7 years ago, and he's still one of the best safeties in the NFL. His coverage stats were in the top 3 this year in terms of passer rating allowed. When you look at interceptions, when you look at completion percentage, Devin McCourty is amazing. He's still amazing. He's arguably the best general of a deep free safety in the NFL. He's one of the smartest players in the league. He's one of the best leaders in the secondary in the NFL. He is the leader of the Patriots defense currently and has been for quite some time. And just a champion, a winner, a absolute awesome football player. This guy does not get the respect and the admiration that he deserves. I think he's a Hall of Famer, and I hope one day he can make it there. He's certainly a Patriots Hall of Famer, but I do think he deserves a gold jacket as well. This guy's so good, and he's still so good. He really had his best season in a while, honestly, last year. And the only reason I rank him at number 11 is because his versatility isn't quite what it used to be. It's not quite what other safeties offer in terms of he doesn't really match up on tight ends anymore. He doesn't really match up on certain players that much. He's mostly primarily that deep free safety, but he is really, really, really good at it. And he's one of the most sure tacklers in the NFL in open space. And that's why the Patriots never give up big plays, because Devin McCourty's always there to bail them out. Not to mention, this guy never misses a damn snap, like at all. So Devin McCourty is number 11. Entering the top 10 safeties in the NFL today, Jimmie Ward of the San Francisco 49ers. If you want a Swiss Army knife type safety, just call up Jimmie Ward and he'll give you that player. Jimmie Ward, once upon a time, was almost a nickel defender in a way, where he was a matchup player. He was kind of a Derwin James-esque player for San Francisco, and now he's transformed into more of a Marcus Williams, Devin McCourty type player, where he's primarily a free safety, but he has a little bit of ability still where they ask him to match up on certain guys, and he can do a really good job of taking that away. So the incredible part to me about Jimmie Ward is not only does he have the range of the best free safeties in the NFL, but he has the physicality and the toughness of a lot of the best strong safeties. I think he's probably the most underrated safety in the NFL, and I think he deserves a lot more respect. My number 9 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is Marcus Williams of the Baltimore Ravens, formerly of the New Orleans Saints. Marcus Williams, I felt, was at his best last year. I think this guy is getting better. I think there's a reason that the Ravens paid him the contract that they did. He is so good at football. You know, he's not the biggest playmaker. He's not the most physical, but damn is this guy good. I mean, he's so smart. He is incredibly smart. His anticipation of passing game in general, just the passing game, is insane. His break on the football is great. I felt like he showed more of a capacity to play man coverage this year on receivers and tight ends. And I feel like he's just so good as a deep free safety. And his team never gives up big plays. It's because of Marcus Williams. He consistently has interceptions and big plays for his defense. And he's a little bit of a general out there as well. He's not one of these big personalities, but man, I just can't stress enough how good this guy is, and how much he might be missed in New Orleans, because I don't think they really replaced him in New Orleans. He's a unique player in terms of his ability to open up Marshawn Lattimore and the aggressive style of coverage that they try to play in New Orleans. Williams is so good at just being that safety blanket of a safety, and I think he'll provide that to the aggressive corners of Baltimore this year. The number 8 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is the Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu of the New Orleans Saints. This is the safety that the Saints signed post Marcus Williams. He's a different player from Marcus Williams. Williams is a better deep free safety, but Tyrann Mathieu is still an incredible matchup player. Now, the question is, how will he age? Because he's always played with such recklessness and such fearlessness that Tyrann Mathieu could really regress at any point. But he's still so good in man coverage. He can take away slot receivers, which is an incredibly big job in the NFL. He can cover tight ends. He can cover running backs, one-on-one, man coverage, press at the line of scrimmage, off coverage. He can play as a robber defender and lurk around like an Ed Reed-esque player and pick passes off and take them to the house. He can play in the box as a strong safety and fill the hole, the gap, and make a play in the run game and tackle. He can also blitz. He's just so good in all facets of the game. I felt like he was the best safety entering last season. He has dipped for me physically as a physical specimen, but he's still very smart and he's still very good in coverage, and the stats back that up. Mathieu will be missed for the Chiefs this year. My number 7 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is Budda Baker of the Arizona Cardinals. Budda Baker is an absolute missile of a human being. Budda Baker is probably one of the most exciting defenders in the NFL to watch. There are plays where this man's acceleration and break on the football is unmatched. It is spectacular. And I've never been the biggest Budda Baker fan, but I felt like this is why I rank him higher now. They asked him to play a different role this year. He did not play nearly as many snaps in the box, that was Thompson's role this year, as he did previously. He proved to me this season that he has versatility. Not only can he be one of the best tackling strong safeties, hard hitters in the NFL, and run defenders, but he can also be a rangy free safety who breaks on the ball with acceleration and make plays in the air. And Budda Baker just provided to me that he's top 10, that he's elite, because he's well-rounded. He is incredibly versatile now. And even though he's a little bit stocky and short, he can still make plays in the air. And great blitzer, phenomenal, great in the screen game. He's relentless, he's explosive, he's Budda Baker. My number 6 safety in the NFL today is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' Antoine Winfield Jr. Antoine Winfield Jr. is very similar to the last 2 safeties on the list, Budda Baker and Tyrann Mathieu. He possesses the skills of both players. He's not quite as savvy or experienced as a guy like Tyrann Mathieu, but he is more explosive than him. He's not quite as explosive as Budda Baker, but he's better in coverage than Budda Baker. He's a mix of both. Antoine Winfield Jr., the reason he's number 6 is because I feel like if you just made him a strong safety, he'd be one of the best strong safeties in the NFL. If you just made him a deep free safety, he'd be one of the best free safeties in the NFL. But in Tampa Bay's defense, he plays free safety, he plays strong safety, he plays kind of extra linebacker dude, and he also plays, I'm going to stand on the edge of the line of scrimmage and blitz and sack the quarterback guy. So Antoine Winfield Jr. just has 0 weaknesses. He's good in zone, especially in coverage. He's great with the ball in the air. He mossed Michael Pittman, who has about 8 inches on him. He can play in the run game at the end of the line of scrimmage. He can blitz really well and pass rush, actually. He has a pass rush move. The only thing I would say he's not excellent at is man coverage. And if he can get that down, he has the ability to be that. This guy could be as good as his dad. The number 5 safety in the NFL today is Minkah Fitzpatrick of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do believe that Minkah is now the highest paid safety in the NFL, and I think he deserves that, but he didn't have his best season last year. I thought he was far better the season previous in terms of production, in terms of stats, in terms of big plays, all that. But where I did feel like Minkah Fitzpatrick was better this year was his all-around game. I felt like Fitzpatrick upped his game in terms of his run defense. I really felt like he was extraordinary coming downhill. There were so many plays where I saw him just a missile from his free safety deep spot and come downhill and make a play against a really good running back. Like Joe Mixon's, Nick Chubb's, like in the hole, one-on-one, bam, stop them in their tracks. Wide receiver screen, stop them in the tracks. Like, have to fly out wide and lay a big hit. Minkah Fitzpatrick can do that. That's the thing I really respect about Fitzpatrick. He entered the NFL as like this hybrid nickel safety guy. We don't know what he is, but then not only does he have the man-to-man, the zone, the break on the ball, the playmaking ability, he's also physical. He can hit guys, and he can now play as a run player. So Fitzpatrick can kind of do everything. I feel like, honestly, it wasn't that Fitzpatrick got worse this year. It's that the Steelers asked him to do more, which sometimes can hurt a player's productivity. But I still believe he's a top 5 safety in the NFL. The number 4 safety in the NFL today is perhaps the most impressive statistical safety in the NFL in 2021, which was Jordan Poyer of the Buffalo Bills. Jordan Poyer This is the year that I felt like he was better than MICAH HYDE. Like, this is the season where I felt like the number one guy, the number one safety on the Bills is Jordan Poyer. And the reason is he was so much better in coverage this year. This guy was one of the best, if not the best coverage safety from strong safety in the NFL this year. He allowed the lowest passer rating, I believe, in the NFL, if not just safeties, the entire NFL. I think it was like something like a 13 passer rating, which is absolutely ridiculous, ludicrous. Jordan Poyer is not only one of the best run defending strong safeties, he's also one of the best tight end stoppers in the NFL and a very good zone middle of the field defender. Jordan Poyer is an awesome football player. I think he's one of the most underrated players and another safety that just keeps getting better with more experience. The number 3 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is the incredibly versatile and unique Derwin James. Some people in the comments are going to say, Mitch, Derwin James is the best safety in the NFL, and I won't argue with that. You could argue he's the best safety in the NFL. And it's because of his versatility and because of this reason and this reason only. Derwin James is asked to do things that other safeties are not asked to do. Derwin James is asked to play one-on-one with Travis Kelce. Derwin James is asked to play one-on-one with the best slot receivers in the NFL. Derwin James is then in the same game asked to play as a strong safety, run down in the box and be the best linebacker on the team because we don't have good linebackers. Derwin James is then also asked to deep free safety because he's the best deep free safety. So he's the best slot corner, the best linebacker, and the best safety on the team. That's just a tough place to be. And sometimes you're going to get exposed because of it, but then you also see how valuable he is in games like against the Chiefs, where he shuts down Travis Kelce and forces mistakes. He's a great playmaker, a very good one-on-one coverage player, and I think he'll be better next year because he'll have an offseason to prepare and work his body back to 100%, which really wasn't there last year, but I think he's as talented, if not more talented, than any safety in the NFL. The number 2 safety in the NFL entering 2022 is, in my opinion, the best football player that is not discussed enough. That is Justin Simmons of the Denver Broncos. Justin Simmons is arguably my favorite safety in the NFL. Justin Simmons is good at everything. He's just good at everything. I mean, this guy is just so good. I don't know what to say. He's big. He's physical. He's quick. He's strong. He's fast. He's smart. He's everything you want in a safety. And it's no surprise that scouts, coaches in the NFL voted him as the number 1 safety in the league. Because you could argue over the past 4 seasons, he's been the best safety in the NFL. His interception numbers are really consistent. He's had 4 picks, 5 picks, I believe, or 4 and 5 and 5, something to that degree over the last 3 years. He's amazing in quarters coverage, especially under Vic Fangio the last couple of years, where he's having to cover speedy receivers, he's having to cover tight ends. His break on the ball is really, really, really good. His ability to play as that deep free safety and be able to play in run support is also really good. So that's what I respect about Justin Simmons is because of the system he plays in, he's having to be very active, and the safety position is probably the most important position on the field because you're having to play coverage like a corner, but run defense like a linebacker. So that's why your safeties are so important in that scheme. And that's why Justin Simmons to me is so valuable. And that's why he's paid so much money. Because he's that good. The number 1 safety in the NFL today is Kevin Byard of the Tennessee Titans. I don't think there's a clear, definitive best safety in the NFL. But based on last season, a guy that's been good for a while and a guy that was the best last year was Kevin Byard. There is just simply no area where you could say that Kevin Byard was not one of the elite safeties in the NFL. If you're talking about coverage, there was no one better in really being a versatile coverage player at the safety position. In terms of ball hawk, in terms of one-on-one man coverage, in terms of robber ability, in terms of deep ability, BYARD's been able to do it all. He's played strong safety. He's played free safety. He had equal snaps at both deep free safety and box safety this year. He also played a lot of snaps in the slot. He can play the run game very, very well. He can blitz well. He can just do everything well. And I felt like he amped up his anticipation, amped up his ball skills, amped up his break on the ball this year, where you just saw him make incredible plays this season in coverage. Like, just reading the offense like he knew the play. Like, honestly, was that good at times. And I think the best player on the Tennessee Titans defense last year. So Kevin Byard to me is the best safety in the league because he's probably the most flawless safety right now in the league. And he was also just the best last year, the most productive last year. So let me know if you think Kevin Byard is the best safety, or if you think it's Simmons, if it's Derwin James, if it's somebody else. Let me know in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And we will see you in the next video. Peace.